CCI Uppercut, pistol versus rifle. So CCI Uppercut is an ammunition that was designed specifically for handguns as a true self-defense jacketed hollow point bullet. Before the Uppercut, there is essentially no such thing as a true jacketed hollow point bullet. They were just copper washed or lead bullets. But CCI has created a jacketed hollow point, truly jacketed bullet. And is a 32 grain hollow point rated at 950 feet per second. It says in the box it's optimized for 2.5 inch to 4 inch barrel handguns, semi-automatic pistols. So I'm very interested in this test here because I tested this almost a year ago through this Taurus TX22 pistol here, and a few people were asking, you know, what would you get through the rifle? And I was thinking that myself, and I really wasn't sure. So I picked up this Rossi RS22 rifle last summer, and I haven't ran a whole lot of ammo through it. So I thought, you know, let's pick up some CCI Uppercut because it is becoming in stock all over the place now. A year ago it was hard to find, but now it actually is pretty plentiful. And interesting here that it's true jacketed. I'm not sure how it's going to perform in a rifle because, you know, generally a rifle will definitely give you more velocity with 22, but you know, a copper jacket is going to produce a little bit of bore drag. That might slow you down quite a bit. So we'll see what we get anyways. We're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So I'm going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics, no denim or anything like that in the way that could clog a hollow point or anything like that. We'll see what we get in our best potential test. Then I'll do more of a real world simulation where I'm going to have 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we're going to have a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard right here to represent hitting ribs or sternum. 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and then another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard on the back to represent hitting back ribs or sternum. Clear ballistics is roughly a half representation of the density of flesh, of how deep a bullet will go in an actual flesh target. So instead of 3 inches and 16 inches, it's more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches. So it's kind of like 9.5 inches of, you know, a mammalian target. So we'll do a plain clear ballistics shot, then a real world simulation shot, and then I will shoot at the scale target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these between the pistol and the rifle. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up we'll run it through the pistol. It's rated at 950 feet per second. Taurus TX22, by the way, this is a 4.1 inch barrel. Let's see how close I get to 950 feet per second. 961, 1026, 972, 985. I have failure to feed on this, and I did clean this thing really well last night. So that's something to note. Keep going. 1025, 989. So just for fun, I brought out my Heritage Rough Rider, which has a 4, I believe it's 4 and 5/8 inch barrel. If you actually line up where the chambers are, where the back of the round sits, you actually have about 2 inches more barrel travel with this, or gun travel I should say, through the cylinder and in the gun. So I'm curious about what this will give. So let's see what I get in this little Rough Rider here. 866, 846, 821, 755, 815, 828. And I definitely saw that coming because the barrels in these guns aren't particularly good. So, you know, that's a lesson there about barrel length. You can't always say, you know, something's going to be faster because the barrel's longer. There's a lot of other things that come into play. So now we're going to see what we get in the rifle. This is what we're all here for, probably. Curious about what we're going to get in this. So this is an 18-inch barrel. See how close I get to that 950 that it's rated at. 1292, wow. 1315. 1317, 1329, 1349, 1309, 1315. So I'm very surprised. I was coming into this thinking I'm going to get probably no velocity gain because the bore drag is going to outweigh, you know, the extra barrel length, and it's going to bring it down to 1,000 feet per second, and the velocity spreads are going to be wild. This was fast, and this was a very consistent velocity. Very nice. And you know, I couldn't even hear the gunshots. Honestly, it's very, very quiet. Something about it's quieter than typical. So let's hit our ballistics gel block with this round between the pistol, the 4.1 inch pistol, and 18-inch rifle. See if there's a big difference in its performance. All right, our first shot in the plain clear ballistics. No denim in the way to clog a hollow point. No rib simulation to slow down penetration. Let's see what we get in our pistol here. All right, let's hit that going through our rifle. Let's go take a look. So I saw something very interesting instantly. Fragmentation once it hit that first 3-inch piece. A lot more damage on top with that rifle versus the pistol on the bottom. We have fragmenting pieces of that bullet. You know, and this is designed for a pistol, so it's probably designed to, you know, segment out and break open, so that, you know, not break apart, but break open, so that the hollow point will expand better at slower velocities. So if you propel it at really fast velocities, yeah, I could see why this would happen. So with our pistol and our rifle, there's not a big difference in penetration, but there's a big difference in performance. So just a big difference in expansion and all of that. But both of these had under penetration. So through our pistol, we have about I'll give it 9.5 inches. I know the way I have this camera parallaxed here, it's gonna look like it's maybe 10.5 inches, but when you look on a straight on view where I'm looking at, it's 9.5 inches. From my view, it looks like there's some expansion, but I can't tell the extent of it. Now through our rifle, we have a lot more explosion going on up here, fragmentation. I can see the expanded core, and we're at about 10 inches of penetration through the rifle. So interesting overall. I'd like to see a little bit more penetration. So let's put on our denim, put in our rib simulation. That might create a little bit more penetration by limiting the expansion a little bit, or explosion, I want to say, with the rifle. So let's try that. All right, our real world simulation. 4 layers of denim, 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent a pectoral muscle, a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics gel, then another 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent back ribs, and more gel. I highly doubt we'll even come close to that back ribs simulation, but let's see what we get here for performance through our pistol. All right, let's hit that with our rifle. Let's go take a look. All right, so I got what I was hoping for, a little bit better penetration. If we limit that expansion a little bit with that denim, but what it looks like here is we got better performance in the rifle for sure. When we look at our first 3-inch piece here, it's just a straight line through with our 22, which it indicates probably not expanding, and I can confirm that by looking right there. And looking at our rifle, we have a lot of damage up there that would indicate energy dump and probably expansion, and I can see that right there. So we'll pull out our rib simulation here and take a look, and we can definitely see right here our pistol on the bottom, just a poked hole. Our rifle on top, we're definitely expanding. So with our pistol, I'm actually okay with this because, you know, we got adequate penetration at least, but we don't have expansion. So what we got going on here is about 13.5 inches of penetration, which is adequate, but I'm honestly not seeing any difference with this between something like a copper wash bullet. However, that being said, it is truly jacketed, and when I've shot rib simulation with copper wash bullets, a lot of times they don't go this deep because they're deforming too much. So you might look at this and say, oh, that's a terrible performing round, it's all hype, it didn't expand. It actually did better though. It did better than a copper wash because that harder shell, that harder jacket prevented a whole bunch of mushrooming, so it penetrated to adequate depths after hitting a rib simulation or a rib. So I would say that actually is continuing to perform a lot better than a typical 22 round. Now through our rifle, we have a lot more damage going on, and we went to a penetration of 11 3/4. We're just shy of where we want to be, but we did have a lot of energy dump and a lot of expansion. And considering we went through rib simulation, you know, rib simulation, when I put that in there, it typically does bring my penetration down near identical to organic ballistics gel. So yeah, that is still just a little bit, you know, 1/4 inch less than what we want to see, but there's a good chance if I shot this 4 or 5 more times, we'd get one that went past 12 inches. So when I see this like 11 inches, I don't like take it too seriously and be like, well, that's terrible. So honestly, not terrible performance for both, but what I'm going to say is it's unexpectedly pretty good through the rifle. I was not expecting to see that. So let's pull these out of block. We'll take a close-up look at them, then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel. Our pistol with the 4.1 inch barrel on the left and the rifle on the right. We can definitely see some fragmentation with that rifle shot. A lot of fragmentation of that bullet. So we had some mediocre expansion there with that pistol bullet, through the pistol I should say, on the left there. And a whole bunch of fragmentation, busted up pieces with the rifle. Big difference there. Now when we go through our denim and our rib simulation, nothing happened at all with the one through the pistol. But it didn't deform at all, which is really impressive because normally they will deform and then underpenetrate. That had a very tough jacket that didn't deform. So I'm actually impressed with that, the way it is. Now through our rifle, I actually did a little bit better because we did not fragment. You know, it just expanded out, had one fragmenting piece. Now with this, some of these pieces were actually in the first 3-inch piece as well, which would indicate, you know, if it was a real attacker, that would be stuck in the skin and then this core would penetrate deep. As with this, more of those pieces, you know, didn't bust off. They just like expanded out from lowering that expansion threshold through the denim. So definitely have better performance in the rifle overall. However, you know, not terrible performance based on that jacket. You know, we didn't get expansion, but we got pretty close to adequate penetration. And I'd say that's a little bit more important. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target. I'm just going to get a front sight picture, try to pop these off as fast as I think I can hit the target, but I'm also going to change my point of aim at a certain point to see if I can get some, you know, more precision shots, as that's kind of an important thing with 22. So let's see what I can do with our pistol here. All right, not too bad performance overall. Now we'll see what I can do with this rifle, and I'm going to try to demonstrate why a rifle can be a good option with a 22. You know, you have that ability to get a little bit more precision there, and pretty effective overall if you know how to use it. So let me back up a little bit and see if I can continue to hit the target with these from some more distance. All right, 75 yards from the target just for fun. I'm going to see if I can hit the target with these pistol, rifle. Let's see how I can do with this pistol here. Another failure to feed there. I have no idea why it's doing that. I And another one. All right, so that first shot I took, I was aiming center, and I saw I was hitting low, so I aimed high for the rest of those. I had a string there where I wasn't hitting anything. I don't really know why. But we'll see what it gets the rifle here. This should help me a little bit at this distance. All right, I forgot to put the magazine in the rifle after I loaded it, so that got me in a lot worse trouble. That would get me a lot worse trouble than that pistol malfunctioning. So I'll keep going here. All right, I pulled one, I think high and right. I saw my sights hit like that, line up above the target, and I missed. So just for fun, I'm gonna back up to 100 yards. These are shooting okay. I want to see how they continue to, mostly want to see how they continue to do as rifle rounds, because they seem pretty good overall as a rifle round. All right, 100 yards from the target. This is mostly just for fun with the pistol, because that's a long shot. But for the rifle, it's a little bit more practical. So let's see how I can do it with the pistol from 100 yards. I'm honestly surprised I had as many hits as I did have. I was figuring I was going to miss every one of those, because it's getting to that point where it's hard for me to even see the target because the color of it. You know, I sometimes change my target colors depending on the time of the year. Like I'll use white, but I won't use it in winter. I use yellow, but I won't use it this time of the year, but I've kept using yellow. So it's harder to see. So I'll take my glasses off. Maybe I can see better instead of shooting the rifle. Then you hit this thing. Got a couple more rounds, why not? All right, so with that, I just aimed center mass. I cannot tell where they're hitting. I can't see really any impacts at all from this distance. So what I'm gonna say is overall, this stuff seems okay. A lot of people really like to hyper focus on one thing or another thing, and it's like penetration or it's expansion. And if they don't see one of those things, it's out for that ammo. It's terrible. But I look at things from an overview of everything. That's kind of why I do shooting at distances, because I kind of add that into what I feel about the ammo. Like I gotta have an ammo that's really good ballistic performance, but then I come back a little distance and it's like, why is it shifting 15 foot left and then right the next round? And it makes me think, and I don't like inconsistencies like that. So I like to look at everything and look at the consistency of it and see what I think of it. And looking at this, I'm going to say, even though it didn't really expand that well in our real world simulation, I'm going to say it's a better round than most because it has that true jacketed bullet which prevented deformation. The problem here is that people are really wanting to see hollow point expansion the way they're going to see in a centerfire handgun. And it is a little bit misleading to act like this is going to give that, because from what I'm seeing from a 4.1 inch pistol, it's not giving that. So for them to market that as, you know, showing an expanded hollow point, that's a little bit misleading. That being said, I'm still going to say it's a good defensive round because of that hard jacket that's going to bust through bone a lot better than typical. And that's one thing that a lot of people leave out of their ballistic tests. They leave that out, and then they'll look at really soft impacts in gel and be like, that's performed good. And then they don't realize that, you know, especially with stuff like this, stuff that doesn't have a jacket, ribs will significantly change that bullet. And there's something within wounding ballistics. You know, a lot of people talk about shot placement. There's also something called wound placement, and they're completely two different things. Shot placement is important, but people will assume, let's say it's, you know, you make a shot here, it's going to hit something extremely vital. It's going to hit the heart exactly right because my shot placement was right. Well, your shot placement might be right, but the wound placement with a 22 is going to smash that typical bullet, flatten it, skirt it somewhere else away from where you think you were aiming. And when you have soft bullets that don't have a jacket, your wound placement is significantly altered. With something like this that doesn't deform so much because of that hard jacket, your wound placement is more in line with your shot placement, and that's something that's extremely important. One thing I think that they could do to improve this round would be to simply do what the Federal Punch did. You know, Federal Punch has a 29 grain bullet and it is a flat point, so it'll orient that bullet straight, but it is also a softer bullet that's just, you know, I believe it's copper zinc washed or whatever. If they were to make a bullet like that is true copper jacketed, I think they would have a complete winner of a round that would be a fantastic self-defense round. It would be superior to anything that's ever been made for 22. But as it is, this isn't bad. I'm just reviewing this ammo, so this isn't too bad overall. I think it's not a bad choice because it does have nickel-plated cases. That's better to have than your typical bull camo, and it has a jacketed bullet. And most surprising overall was this. I was thinking, you know, that's optimized for a pistol, but it performed one of the best performing rounds I've seen out of this rifle for consistency. That's something you don't get with 22. Is consistent velocities. I was getting very consistent velocities, really good gel performance, really good accuracy. So I'm going to say, you know, this is a better rifle round. If they remarketed this as a, you know, better than the Stinger, I think it would be a fantastic rifle round. But I think they should change things up a little bit with, you know, how they're marketing their pistol rounds. But overall, as it is, it's not bad. I would choose this. Now, I did get some malfunctions in my pistol. That doesn't mean that, you know, you would get that in yours. That's why it's important to run round, because I could have two of this exact same pistol from Taurus. One could run it exactly fine, the next one wouldn't run it at all. So that's why it's important to test your own ammo. You can't really look at somebody else's, you know, what they're getting. You have to test it yourself and see what you get. So as it is, though, with all the attributes of it, I would say I still probably would use it as a personal defense round because nickel-plated, you know, copper jacketed bullets. Overall, it's not bad. And we got pretty good ballistic performance. So interesting test. That's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like. And thanks for watching.